welcome. I'm Dr. Kurt Johnson of the Light on Light Press, and you're about to view the video from the book launch of Dr. Robert Atkinson's new book from Light on Light, A New Story of Wholeness, an experiential guide for connecting the human family. Forward by Jean Houston, afterward by Deepak Chopra. The launch was held in New York City on November 17th, where Dr. Atkinson, a two-time Nautilus Award winner, was joined by author and cosmologist Dr. Jude Currivan, author and psychologist Dr. Julie Krull, and interspiritual leader Kate Sheehan Roach. So welcome, and let's go over right now to the book launch video. Welcome to this Light on Light Press book launch event for A New Story of Wholeness, an experiential guide for connecting the human family. A book that we're pleased to say is already a #1 book in pre-sales at Amazon and other booksellers. I'm Dr. Kurt Johnson, a managing director at the Light on Light Press, an imprint of SacredStories Publishing. And I'm here with a number of special guests, each of whom you'll be further introduced to as we proceed in this time that we're sharing together. So these special guests are, first, the author of A New Story of Wholeness, Dr. Robert Atkinson, who is also another managing director here at Light on Light. And then Bob will be introducing to you each of his special guests as he talks with them about this amazing book. And these include Dr. Jude Currivan, award-winning author, anthropologist, and cosmologist, and founder of The Whole World View. Dr. Julie Krull, award-winning author and founder of Good of the Whole, and host of the Dr. Julie Show, All Things Connected. And Kate Sheehan Roach, spirituality director for a number of interfaith and interspiritual organizations, including Contemplative Life and Prosocial World. Our launch is being broadcast across Facebook by the Sign Network, thanks to John Raymer, who's also with us today. You can find out more about Light on Light at lightonlight.us and at imprints at SacredStories.com, and more about Sign at the SINE Facebook page. So we're going to start out by Bob talking first about this amazing book, and then with each of his guests, and then with them as a group. And Bob will be introducing each of his guests as they join us. So to get all this rolling, we're going to go now to just Bob and me, and I'll briefly tell you more about Dr. Robert Atkinson. Robert Atkinson, PhD, is an award-winning author, educator, and developmental psychologist, the 2020 Gold Nautilus Book Award winner as co-editor of Our Moment of Choice, Evolutionary Visions, and Hope for the Future, and a 2017 Silver Nautilus Award for his book, The Story of Our Time, From Duality to Interconnectedness to Oneness. And he is the author of the book that we're launching today from the Light on Light Press, A New Story of Wholeness, an experiential guide for connecting the human family, with its foreword by Jean Houston and its afterword by Deepak Chopra. And Bob has also written 9 other books, so check him out at Amazon and at the other booksellers. With a PhD in cross-cultural human development from the University of Pennsylvania and a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Chicago, he is professor emeritus at the University of Southern Maine, director of the Story Commons, founder of the One Planet Peace Forum, and a member of the Evolutionary Leaders. And you can find out more about Bob at robertatkinson.net. So let's go now to Dr. Robert Atkinson to first tell us more about the book and then engage with each of his guests.
Thanks so much, Kurt, for all your support in bringing us together today and for your wonderful vision for Light on Light Press. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all to help launch the book. And it really does take a village to make a book. And I'm so grateful to all the many people who have contributed to this book over so many years, because this is the culmination of a lifetime of being synergistically drawn into this amazing work. And I'm especially grateful to my three special guests today, who have each contributed so much to this book: Dr. Jude Currivan, Dr. Julie Krull, and Kate Sheehan Roach, who I'll say a little bit more as I introduce them later. So we'll be talking about my new book, and I'll start off with a quick overview. Over many years, it's become clear to me that we are all on a similar journey. Recognizing this, identifying its terrain, and making it known to others has been the challenge of sages, mystics, and writers of all genres across the centuries. A testament to its universality is that its names are many, yet its outcome is one. It's difficult to deny in today's divided world that a most vital journey for us all is living into our wholeness. In fact, some see wholeness as a remedy for an ailing humanity. This book represents a lifetime of work in psychology, mythology, mysticism, and storytelling to understand our purpose here and to find the keys to a process that could assist, guide, and inspire us in this quest. So the book is designed to guide us toward our personal and collective wholeness, which is experienced as a sense of completeness, harmony, balance, and unity within all parts of the whole. This book gives us a clear path toward applying a deeper appreciation of the inherent unity that binds us all together. It's about how the personal experience of a timeless pattern embedded within us leads us directly into the process of personal and collective transformation by guiding us toward contributing to the good of the whole. The book takes us directly into the story of our time, a global movement toward unity and wholeness, by recognizing how a universal pattern of transformation connects the individual, the collective, and the whole. The book is framed by three principles of evolution, consciousness, and wholeness that underlie this pattern, which is part of our spiritual DNA. The book also has Jean Houston's foreword, reweaving our stories, and Deepak Chopra's afterword, Wholeness is What We Are, which are compelling and insightful bookends to this essential and comprehensive principle-based toolbox for understanding the direction and pattern of our evolving consciousness. I'd like to say a bit more about this hidden thread of wholeness that connects us all. Let's first imagine there is only wholeness. Imagine all things in the entire creation making up an interconnected whole. Imagine a world in which the explicit purpose of life is to realize the wholeness of the entire creation, to serve the good of the whole, and to live out our lives in wonderment of and in harmony with that whole. In this wholeness, apparent opposites like yin and yang, feminine and masculine, are complementary, interrelated halves of the same whole, balancing, integrating, uniting, and transcending their assumed duality. This unitive awareness as a way of seeing reality is central to indigenous wisdom traditions and a state of consciousness sought by all contemplative practices, yet readily available to all. The role of stories in humanity's evolving consciousness is vital. We may remember from the origin stories of Gaia, our planetary home, that all existence was intended to remain whole. However, stories like the Garden of Eden and Pandora's Box are not only about asserting our own individual will over a greater will, but also about humanity's fall from wholeness. To put these stories in a broader context, I'd like to share with you a story about stories. There was a time when people gathered to share stories that embodied the values and principles they lived by. These stories held the community together and gave them a sense of shared purpose. They were unitive narratives, essential to their individual and collective well-being. Then there came a time when communities expanded, spread out, became more diverse, and experienced conflict and disorder. Out of this discord emerged divisive narratives that maintained separation. Today, as we approach a consciousness of global integration, a new story of our wholeness is needed to frame this interconnectedness. It is time to come together again through unitive narratives to share our own stories of living into wholeness. So here we have a storyteller's history of the world, of how stories evolve over millennia. Nothing may be more vital right now than a healing vision that guides us toward wholeness. A new story of wholeness offers just that, by decoding a pattern hidden within the structure of story itself. The biggest clue to this powerful story pattern and our living into wholeness is found in the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, all things accomplishing the miracles of the one thing. And Plato gives us a vision of this wholeness too. He said, perhaps there is a pattern set up in the heavens for one who desires to see it, and having seen it, to find one in himself. A new story of wholeness shows how we discover a pattern that connects the apparent randomness of our own life experiences. This pattern becomes evident through ways of knowing and practices meant to assist us in the journey to our fullest potential. In mythology, this pattern is seen as a journey of departure, initiation, and return. In mysticism, it is a process of awakening, purification, and union. In ritual, it is separation, transition, and incorporation. And in psychology, it takes in the stages of birth of the ego, death of the ego, and birth of the whole self. These are all slight variations on a core pattern of transformation that keeps us moving along a trajectory intended to guide us from separation to union or wholeness. This pattern is evident in the basic structure of story, too, which is not just beginning, middle, and end, but on a much deeper and more meaningful level, beginning, muddle, and resolution. The muddles or challenges we face represent the core of the pattern that brings the process of transformation to its completion or resolution. When we merge all these ways of knowing and practices into one, we come up with a blueprint for living into wholeness that brings with it a unitive consciousness. The book goes into detail explaining why this blueprint consists of three main parts: call to wholeness, path of purification, and return to wholeness. This pattern guides our evolving consciousness, transforms our lives, keeps our focus on the wholeness of all things, and keeps humanity on its evolutionary path. So a new story of wholeness brings all the paths to wholeness back together as one and provides the context, framework, and all the reflective writing exercises needed for telling our stories of wholeness. Now, let's talk about what it would be like if there really is a timeless universal pattern found in the heavens and in us as well, designed to guide us toward a unitive consciousness. How would seeing all things in the universe as tied together change the way we live our lives? What do you think? Is there something out there and within us guiding us toward wider and wider circles of unity, ultimately toward the unity of the whole? Or what is it that you'd like to share from your own perspective on the book? Kate, we'll begin with you, and I'll just say again that Kate Sheehan Roach is spirituality director of Contemplative Practices and Prosocial World, as well as a number of interfaith and interspiritual groups, and also an outstanding editor. Kate?
Thank you, Bob. What an honor it is to serve as your editor on this amazing book, as well as the story of our time. I had to do the math, and I'm amazed that it's been 5 years since we worked together on your previous book that for me was a life changer. It really was. And what you've done here with this book is you've taken that life changer and you've put me in the pages of it, put the reader right into the pages, where I'm reminded of that adage of when you want to feed a village, you don't just give them a fish, you show them how to fish. That's what you've done for me in this book, taking this amazing message that shows up in all the world's religions. I'm reminded of, so many different traditions talking about this departure and return to wholeness that shows up in so many ways. But what you do, Bob, is you tell the story and you invite us to insert ourselves into the story. And to tell our own version of the story, to learn how to do that, feels to me reminds me of some of my favorite college professors, where I wanted to show up early and be sitting in the front row and to get every kernel of wisdom from this course. And that's how I feel as your editor, Bob, that I'm in the front row, that I get to be sort of the first person that pores over every word in your books. So thank you for not only having the vision to see what appears indeed above and below, but inviting us into it, inviting us to participate and tell the story and engage with the story in very hands-on ways that really, to me, is the perfect sequel to a book that changed my life, and your writing continues to push us forward, to allow us a way forward into this new story. That's how I see it. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Kate. It's so, I'm so grateful to have your mark on this book and the previous one. Thank you for all that you've contributed to it. So, Jude is the author, Jude Currivan is the author of The Story of Gaia and the award-winning The Cosmic Hologram, and the co-founder of Whole World View. What are your thoughts, Jude, on the book or any of the themes in it?
Thank you, Bob. And as we're all saying, it's wonderful to be with you, and congratulations on this extraordinary achievement. It truly is a wonderful book. I love it on so many levels, actually. One of the levels I quite enjoy it at is that you wrote the story of our time back in 2017 and won the Silver Nautilus Award that year. I wrote the Cosmic Hologram in 2017 and won the Silver Nautilus Award that year. And we didn't know each other then. And yet we were both speaking of this innate wholeness of being. And very much this new story, this unitive narrative now, which is of our time. It is key. It is fundamental, as you say so wonderfully in the book. And you guide us into that remembered wholeness through all the many experiential ways that you write so beautifully about. It's this invitation that you write that invites us back into a remembered wholeness. And from my perspective as a cosmologist, we're finding the same revelatory understanding on a whole universal level. So just as you essentially write, and as mystics and mythologists and so many other seekers over millennia have really told us, showed us that this is our true nature within a unified reality. Science has told a different story until now, essentially. And science now, instead of a story of materialism and separation, of accident, is now telling the same story, is now actually converging with all the tenets of interspirituality, of mythos, of psychology, of storytelling for our human family, into an integral perspective of the nature of reality, the wholeness that you write so beautifully about. And so I think it's an incredibly exciting time, because back in 2017, we didn't know each other, and we wrote 2 books that are inviting folks into this understanding. And now, literally, within a few weeks of each other, we're both publishing new books, yours with the Journey to Wholeness and mine, The Story of Gaia, that again, taking this remembered wholeness forward, yours with a rich panoply of exemplars and a toolkit, a tool bag, as you say, me with a vast array of evidence-based at all scales of existence and across many fields of research, that indeed our universe meaningfully exists and purposefully evolves from simplicity to complexity and ever greater levels of individuated self-awareness and interdependence and interbeing. And that's the journey you're inviting us into. And I'll just complete, because again, I hadn't read your manuscript when I finished my book in this way, but it speaks to exactly what you've written about, in that I talk about the whole story of our universe and Gaia. And I say our flourishing, their flourishing, all of our flourishing in the diversity and complexity of our universe's ongoing journey will eventually come full spiral, from unity to unity in diversity, to remembered unity in belonging, which is what I feel you're guiding us for too, and an ultimate return to unity. So my dear friend, thank you so, so much for your remarkable genius in sharing it with us and inviting us to a party, a homecoming of joy and of love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jude. It's so great to have your cosmological perspective on this, and to be reminded of our pretty incredible personal and unitive journey from 5 years ago to today with our 2 books that are so, as you've expressed so well, are so parallel to each other over these 5 years of our previous book to our newest books. So thank you so much for all that you've contributed. Wow. So that leaves us with bringing in Dr. Julie Krull, who is author of the award-winning Fractured Grace, host of the Dr. Julie Show, All Things Connected, and founder of Good of the Whole. Julie, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Wow, Bob, on the whole thing, on the whole.
Right. Here we go. We can't get away from, there's no way to get away from the whole thing.
There's no way to get away from that language. Thank you for that. And, it's fascinating. What I just noticed was in your introduction, you're talking about the universality of this book, and you're really telling us the new story of wholeness from cosmology to sociology, psychology, and to mysticism and the spirituality. And here you have Kate here, who is so grounded in the spirituality, the interspiritual, and that part of mysticism. And then we have Jude on the other hand, that's going cosmic and huge. And then my work is in the middle, right? Working with individuals and groups of people, really talking about that psychology and sociology. So I am honored to be here with you, Bob, and celebrate this amazing, amazing book and the contents in it. When you were speaking, I was imagining a campaign of I would love to buy hundreds of books and just go leave them in bookstores and, leave them in cafes and leave them in places where people gather and just leave them for people to pick up, because this message is so essential for our time. It is so essential that as we're in this really difficult phase of humanity going through this evolutionary transition that our consciousness catch up with all the systems and structures as they're breaking down, so that the individual can understand that, oh, there's something else. We're on a journey, and literally take our attention away from the chaos, the crisis, the fear, the constriction that happens, the competition, and bring us back into our own journey of this story of wholeness and go, oh yeah, I get it. And we're doing this as humanity. We're doing it as a collective. When you shared the Plato quote and you were sharing some other things and you were talking about there's a pattern up in heaven. I've seen that pattern. I, as a child, had a near-death experience. And from being in this other realm and seeing this pattern, I completely agree with Plato and with you, Bob, of saying this understanding of the true nature of reality, the true unitive nature of reality, really can heal us as a collective. It heals the individual. We hear so many stories about individual experiences, not just the hero's journey or the long mystical journeys that we go on, but also those different spiritual experiences, that direct experience of unity that wakes us and goes, whoa, wait a minute. That's usually an impetus to set us off on this journey toward wholeness again and wake us up and remind us and literally shake us up sometimes when we get into our complacency. So I'm thrilled. I'm excited. There's so much in this book that I would love to spend hours, and we're going to, Bob, we're going to have some conversations on it and get it out to the world, because it is really an important part of our individual and collective healing. And I just can't wait to get it out there and really let the world see and feel and experience unity and wholeness in a whole new light. So thank you for writing this. And thank you for, I'm with Kate. I loved your book, just everything, and bringing it into this culminary moment of this new story of wholeness is exquisite. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks so much, Julie. And it's been really wonderful thinking about our 5 or 6 year journey together as well. From the first time I was on All Things Connected with you to many, many things after that. And now this is just great. And one thing I've been noticing about all three of you is that, including myself, we each have our own, obviously, we've been talking about this the whole time so far, we each have our own journey that has led us to our own understanding of wholeness, our own experience of wholeness, And as I mentioned, that's really the heart of a new story of wholeness, is the holistic worldview that we've all come to, and that is so well laid out for us by the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, all things working to manifest the miracles of the one thing, and Plato's quote, the pattern, not only in the heavens, but within us. So I'm just wondering if we could take maybe a minute each, or two, a minute or two each, to give everyone a sense of what brought you personally to this place. And I'll begin with Kate again. From all of your work in contemplative practices, which are so many and so broad and so deep, and they all seem to lead to the same place as well. Just wondering, from your experience with all of that, and interfaith work and interspirituality, can you say a minute or two about what led you to this awareness and understanding of a greater unity and wholeness in your life?
I'd love to, Bob. Thank you for that invitation. Once again, Bob always invites us into the story and welcomes us all to tell the story. It's so powerful. I often say that my work began in 1893 in Chicago at the World's Fair. I was just an idea in the universe at that point. But when the Parliament of the World's Religions first met, and Swami Vivekananda came and spoke and changed the world. So I could start in 1893 and walk you all the way up to today. But really, all I need to do is look at your books, Bob, and see how you bring in the various traditions. From this beautiful Jewish concept of tikkun olam is just exactly overlays what you're speaking about, or the Christian tradition of death and resurrection and unity with the divine, or you quote everybody from Darwin to Jung to indigenous grandmothers. There's a layering of this that this work really embodies what we experienced in 1893, and then again in 1993, and now coming in August we'll have another parliament where we'll get together, hopefully in person. But I want to point to a pretty powerful synchronicity that I couldn't have imagined. I don't think either of us could have, Bob, when you asked me to serve as your editor on the new Story of Wholeness. I was in an extraordinary moment with my spouse, my husband, Randy, in a pretty serious health crisis, where a lot of my work came to a screeching halt. There were a lot of things I couldn't do because I was caring for him and really fearful of what might happen. And yet I said yes, because I know you, Bob, and I know that your book is going to bless me even as I work on it. And indeed, this process of this call to wholeness that comes from the knowing that the path of purification, as you describe it, the moments of unknowing will be followed by moments of knowing and wholeness. And really, working on this book with you carried me through that in such a way that was very real and very tangible in my life. And I feel like, again, I got to be the first person to be blessed in a very real way, in very real time. So thank you, Bob, for that.
Well, that's one of the maybe rare results of being a writer. You give your gift to the world or to others, and in doing that, sometimes you get a gift back. So Thank you for sharing that story. And Jude, you've had your own journey that led ultimately to, maybe not ultimately, but to founding the whole worldview and all of your work as a cosmologist. Do you have a short version of your story that led you to all of your amazing work?
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for that beautiful sharing, Kate. My journey's been very scenic, but it began when I was very young, and I began to have experiences. Fortunately, unlike Julie, I didn't need to go through a near-death experience, but I was beginning at that age to hear discarnate voices, to see clairvoyantly, etc., to remote view. So I've been walking between worlds all my life. And so for me, there was never a sense of non-wholeness. There was always differentiation, but never not wholeness in that response. And, that may seem that I've lived a very easy life, but the appearance of separation is very convincing. And so despite that deep knowing, I still found myself in many chapters and steps of my life, really feeling that deep sense of separation and the loneliness that goes with it. So my own journey has been a sort of an all oneness through then to spirals of aloneness and loneliness, and then to all oneness. And I think that too is part of that journey, isn't it? It's not a linear journey. It's almost a dance. And into that remembered wholeness. And just to finish by saying this knowing, this sense of knowing, I recall a quote that somebody asked Jung on his passing, "Do you believe in God?" And Jung said, "No." He said, "I know God." And I would suggest that when we're invited into, and we all are invited into this remembering of our innate wholeness and the wholeness of the whole world, that we can truly know ourselves and truly know God.
Thanks so much, Jude, for sharing your story. And Julie, as founder of Good of the Whole, and we've heard a piece of your story. Do you have anything you'd like to add to how you got to your inclusive perspective, all-inclusive perspective?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'll just add a couple steps in between, because I had my near-death experience when I was 4 years old. And by the time I was 11, I lived in a family with a lot of trauma. And there was a lot of adverse childhood events, from just a variety from abuse to chemical dependency to even a major house fire. Like, there was just a lot that was happening. And one day I just walked out on the grass talking to that God that Jude was just referencing, that knowing part of me going, I don't understand humans. I don't get why they treat each other this way. I also had this real affinity toward the starving children in Africa and the trauma on the planet. Like I knew that. I was watching it on TV and the commercials where they're raising funds and war and I just had that empathic sense. And so from that place of saying, I don't get humans. I don't know why they treat each other this way. If they could see this, why would they be? I don't get it. I didn't want to be there. And so from that place, I had another one of those real profound experiences and saw again the planet, our consciousness, the story weaving in front of my eyes. And it really informed my life, my career. I spent just decades of my life knowing that this is my work on the planet to help humanity wake to the truth of this unitive reality. And from that moment on, have been just very guided, and all my gifts came in with more clarity. And and then I had to balance the serious academic side of me that was looking for the science, the proof, how can we teach this? And then that mystic that was in the closet and walk in both worlds and try to really hold this one out front in this world. So people could see me and hear me, because I knew it was really important. So thanks for asking that. It's a fun story to look and frame what we are here. I'd love to hear yours. If you have a minute, Bob, I'd love to hear your story.
Well, that would take probably longer than we have, because first of all, it is a memoir, and there's a concise version of that in A New Story of Wholeness as well, which I was going to say a little bit about, but I didn't want to take too much time talking about myself any more than I already had. But thanks for that question anyway. I think we are pretty close to when we need to wrap this up. And I just what you just said at the end of your story, Julie, was perfect for what I was thinking of as a way that I would want to close this up. I mean, everything that all of you have said has been so beautiful and just, I know, shared from the heart, and I really appreciate that. To wrap this up, though, and this really does connect with what Julie was saying at the end of her story, and this is what I also say in the book, that is that the process of remembering our unitive consciousness, which is what this is really all about, is not escape from the world or even union with the Creator, but the fullest possible spiritual development through our work in the world. So A New Story of Wholeness provides the roadmap for living into wholeness and connecting the human family one story at a time. So thank you so much, Jude, Julie, and Kate, for your sharing in this special moment with me and offering your wonderful insights into A New Story of Wholeness. Thank you. And back to Kurt.
Well, thank you so much, Bob and Jude, Julie, and Kate. And thanks all of you for joining us. Now be sure and share the video of this book launch event, which you're going to be able to find really soon at YouTube at the Sacred Stories channel, along with a number of other videos that Bob will be doing with other guests discussing the book. So that's going to be at YouTube at the Sacred Stories channel. And then tomorrow on Voice America, we're going to be posting, it'll be available 24/7 thereafter, going to be joined by Dr. Deepak Chopra, who I know all of you already know. And we're actually going to be discussing with him two books. We're going to actually be discussing Paul Mills's new book, From Light and Light, Science, Being, and Becoming, The Spiritual Lives of Scientists, and that tandem in with Bob's book, A New Story of Wholeness. But sharing in with that, the wisdom from Jude's books, The Cosmic Hologram and the Story of Gaia, and Julie's book, Fractured Grace, which I think you know from just having heard her, is how you can weave suffering into a pretty darn good life. And also we'll be contexting those in light of Deepak's three most recent books, Metahuman, Abundance, and Total Meditation. And we'll be joined also by two other neuroscientists from Dr. Paul Mills's book, who actually will be talking about these extraordinary spiritual experiences and their reality. So also watch at these websites, robertatkinson.net, sacredstories.com, and lightonlight.us in the authors, books, and blog sections for more ongoing discussion about Bob's book with other guests that he's bringing into this discussion. So the book is available now at all booksellers, and we look forward to its success. So thanks again, all of you, for joining us.